Hello. Today I'll be covering Kalamazoo, which is a town only about 30 minutes away from where my house is. I live out in the rural area, so I chose Kalamazoo as a hometown, kind of by substitute. It was founded in the 1830s by a guy named Titus Bronson. He was an Irishman, and he was later actually chased out of the same community he had founded and named after himself because he had purportedly stolen a cherry tree from a fellow settler, and he wasn't very popular, and he was very opinionated to the extent that he became so unpopular that they decided just to boot him out of the town and actually rename the town to Kalamazoo because they disliked him just that much. The racial demographics of the town are about 60.2% white, 22.7% black, 0.6% American Indian, 2.7% Asian, and 8.6% Latino. The quote bad neighborhood of Kalamazoo is the north side, and it could also, depending on who you ask, also include Edison and the Vine neighborhood. The Vine neighborhood also being known colloquially as the student ghetto, as a lot of students tend to live there while they're going to the universities in town, primarily Western Michigan. In regard to an infamous scandal, aside from Bronson, a low point in our history is when the KKK was pretty strong here in the mid 20s, and they are rumored to have had actual influence in municipal elections in 1925, and there were a few different cross burnings in the community during that time. Luckily, we basically that fizzled out by the late 20s, and they haven't returned, thankfully. In regard to crime, Kalamazoo has a higher chance of slightly higher rate of violent crime than Michigan has overall. There's a 1 in 79 chance of being a victim of violent crime in Kalamazoo, where there is a 1 in 219 chance of being a victim of violent crime in Michigan overall. 37.19% of Kalamazoo has a bachelor's degree or advanced degree. And yeah, population demographic changes when it comes to that. The town was founded, as many were in Michigan, by Yankees originally, people from Connecticut, New York, and the kind of the broader New England area. But starting in the 1830s and 1840s, the Dutch started coming over. There were two main groups of the Dutch. They're the ones looking for just more land because in the Netherlands, in a country that small, there just isn't a lot of land to go around. So they came here for more land and greater opportunity. And there was the other group that came here to preserve their Calvinist culture and were basically fleeing the Netherlands because, in their view, religious minorities were gaining too many rights there and they were scared by that. And so they came here instead. And then when it comes to local industries, at first it was mainly agricultural and a lot of celery growing, particularly among the Dutch. They did a lot of celery growing. We actually have a park here that's called Celery Flats because it used to be a place where they grew a lot of celery. Um, when it comes to later demographics in the 1850s to the early 1900s, a lot of Irish and Germans settled here and founded a lot of the businesses here and a lot of the department stores. And then during the 1940s, there's a large amount of migration from the American South, particularly of black families who are looking for both better economic opportunity and for probably greater political freedom compared to the Jim Crow South. They came here to work in jobs that were not being worked by people who were instead fighting in World War II. And yeah, the biggest challenge is probably the legacy of redlining and of racial covenants. One of the reasons on the north side tends to be economically less resourced traditionally or historically is a legacy of redlining. In particular, that was one of the few places people of color could actually settle because there weren't restrictive racial covenants saying that, X could not sell to X if X was black or non white. So I'd say that's one of the biggest issues is that some economic stagnation and that a lot of industry left the town beginning in like the 70s going into modern day. Although there is a revival, particularly in the arts and the humanities in town. And as for the town feeling stuck in the past, I think the town's more socially progressive, so I think it's going forward. But I do think that in a lot of ways it feels kind of empty, and some parts of it do feel kind of abandoned. And yeah, I think a lot of that would benefit from just being able to, you know, I'm taking a class right now in local politics taught by Professor Jellier, and he advocates for regionalism, metropolitanism, wherein there are larger regional groups that include multiple communities and towns that can plan together And often they can do revenue sharing where rich communities end up using some of their tax money to then contribute back to poor communities and so on and so forth. So I think that if we had something like that by Kalamazoo where we included Portage and other neighboring communities, the community might be better off economically and socially, and the schools might be also better funded as a result. But yeah, I think that's all I really have to say about Kalamazoo. It is a nice town overall. I hope I didn't give too much of a negative view of it, but they have a great art scene. And the Kalamazoo Institute of the Arts, if you ever get the chance to go, is a wonderful art museum. I'd argue rivaling, if not surpassing, the Graham here in Grand Rapids.